Good day and welcome to another broadcast of this program. Today I'm excited to introduce to you Grant Magua, and he is a superstar when it comes to branding and marketing. Grant, he works with Fortune 500 companies, and he's a guy that we can definitely learn a lot from when it comes to branding and marketing. To get the conversation started, my friend, would you care to tell us what inspired you to get into this field, branding and marketing?
Well, the field is I like working with people that have a vision that they want to manifest and make a reality. And they don't necessarily know the path forward, or they might think they know the path forward, and they want someone to give them some best practices around that. Now, I started in the we call the branding field, which I've done a lot of. I call business development before it was even called branding. It's business development. Some 25 years ago in information technologies, working with companies like Avaya, like Cisco, like used to be called CenturyLink. Now it's called Lumen 5. I'm just thinking, I was just going into my past and seeing what all the different clients that I work with. I work companies like Zones. Zones, if you look at Zones is a humongous um, reseller of 2,000 different information technology, different solutions when it comes to networking and when it comes to cloud computing, when it comes to business transformation, digital transformation. That gave me a lot of exposure to a number of different brands. And it gave me exposure to the go to market model for these technology companies and seeing how, when they were successful, when they weren't successful, how we work with their marketing teams to become more successful, to get their messaging right. 90% of the problem is always usually in messaging. And what you find is that people lead with their solutions first. They feel like a person would be more interested in their solution. So let's get it out there. Well, that's not necessarily the case, but because most people are only going to be involved with your solution at the time that they hear about it, maybe less than 7% are what you were calling a buy now mode. So 93% of the market is not in a buy now mode. So if you're leading with your solution, you've taken that right off the table. So Grant, they would say, Grant, well, what do you mean by that? So well, you're leading the wrong way. You should lead with the problem that your target audience is typically challenged with, or they're going through, or they're going to be challenged with. And that you establish yourself first as someone who understands that particular problem. You are a thought leader in those challenges, and that gives you now alignment when it comes to synergies. Like, hey, this particular person or entity actually understands my business and they understand the audience in which I have dwell in order to create business opportunities. And the messaging they have is not me first, it's them first. Their messaging is around what they're doing and what the potential issues they're going to come across. And here's some guidelines to get you through the maze of business development, sales, marketing, and branding. And that, if you take that attractive position, you will find yourself above the noise in what you're trying to accomplish. This is so important. You start with your business problem first, and then talk about the available options that a person could take to potentially solve those business problems. That's going to help them because they're going to either do one of three things. They're going to try to do it themselves, and they need to understand the implications of that. They will try to get someone to help them, and they need to understand the value of that and what how that relates to where their business. They're going to get somebody that barely fixes the problem, or somebody who's an expert in the problem, or someone who just maybe can just solve the problem. You never know, but there's going to be choices in that area. And then you get to that last. What's that last choice? I do nothing. And I tell you, Gary, over 50% of the people, they do nothing.
I agree.
And that's sad
I agree.
because the problem still exists. So then you
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself the most important thing: is the problem worth solving? Because if the problem isn't worth solving, they are going to do nothing. And you've spent a lot of branding, a lot of marketing, a lot of things about a problem that a person doesn't feel is worth solving. So you need to understand that. So, Gary, I know you were having some issues around power. And so we want to continue on in this particular discussion around branding and marketing, and most importantly, business development. And how does that all going to work together to be effective and work through it? So the things that you need to think about are: what is your framework? What is your framework to begin the process? And as you think through these types of things, as I stated earlier, if you're coming across the business problem, you're going to have to identify what that problem is. What is the actual problem? And map that out. Is it a common problem? Is it a temporary problem? Is it a long term problem? Is it a short term problem? So you start putting time around it and you start looking at how you're going to attack that problem. If it's uh, 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 something that you should deal with immediately, or something that you can delegate to someone else, but is it something that you're going to spend financial resources on? And that's important. And then you start looking at what are the critical success factors in solving this problem, and what is the financial return on investment by solving this problem. So if you begin to do your research and get your data, that'll be the next phase in your framework. And I used what I call the BRAVE framework. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do what I call brand identity. I'm going to identify the business problem. And that's very important in this particular discussion. The next thing I'm going to do is research, right? You've got to research this particular issue in all those different avenues I just talked about: internally, externally. What is the implication on my business? What is the implication on my business clients I have, customers, prospects, or people that I may be involved with? And line it up, and then start looking at it from the financial lens. How much does this challenge cost? What is this problem costing me in the area of time and opportunity? What does that look like? So you need to understand, if it's $100,000 problem, is it a $10,000 problem? Is it $1,000 problem, and so forth? And then if it's a problem that is going to preclude you from additional opportunity to make revenue, what is that impact? Because if $1,000 problem is stopping you from $100,000 opportunity, then it's worth your time, you would figure. Then you got to look at the probability of getting to that $100,000. Is it a 50% opportunity? Is it a 60%, 70, or is it a 10% chance of winning, 25% chance of gaining that opportunity? So important to look at the financial modeling of that, because you can spend a lot of time and a lot of resources trying to solve a problem with low probabilities of success. This happens over and over in business because of market conditions. Market conditions constantly change, or you're hinging uh, uh, a lot of your success on probability, and you really haven't looked at that probability. For instance, and I've done this, and I'm sure you've done this as well, is that you may have a sales opportunity, and you have someone that's interested in your product or your service, and you've had some conversation with them, right? And that's the cost to acquire a client. And then the client now represents, if they choose to invest in this product or service, let's just say it's $100,000 of revenue. And you got to look at revenue. Okay, how much profit is in that particular deal? Now, that'll be the first thing I might even look at when I look at that, because profitability is more important than just the revenue. It may be $100,000 in revenue, but after you've added in all your costs and the cost to acquire and all the things you're going to have to do in resources to get to that $100,000, you may find that you spent more than 100,000 in acquiring that client. Or you might find it was 50,000, 25,000, whatever that number is. That's important to understand as you go into the game of gaining the business and understanding the financial metric. Now, that's just one client, because you got to look at, is my business model made on quality, meaning maybe it's a very low quantity of clients, or is it built on quantity? So I've got to have many more clients in order to make up for my delta and get to the profitability standpoint. This is all in your research that you do. And as you begin to say, okay, I need to then brand and market to the sweet spots of my profitability and probability of gaining opportunity and revenue and business and new clients. And you want to make sure that your messaging, which is going to be in your next stage, I call it the Brave Framework Network. Remember, we started with brand identity, just identifying the problem. And then we started with researching the entire financial metric, understanding the market trend, and then we start getting into the messaging. But I'm going to stop here because I want you to understand that at the point that the client pulls out, if the deal does not happen and you spent significant time and resources, how much is that going to cost you? You need to understand these things as you go down the road before you start the expensive endeavor of branding and marketing in a particular sector or for a particular client. And what does that look like? How much time is that going to cost you? You need to understand all of these things so you can say to yourself the risk that is involved in the research that you've done, and what is the likelihood if it doesn't go the way you want it to go. What happens? What happens if you don't gain the client? Or what happens if the project goes south? Or what happens if the scope of the project changes and the client can't pay on time or pay timely because they're contingent on other factors that are beyond your control? You need to understand all of these things because business is risky, no matter who and what it is, whether you're a Fortune 500 company or you're a small business owner. You must assess the risk involved. You must assess the risk involved. And that is the A of that, right? So you get into brand identity, you got into research and risk. Now you're getting into assessment of the situation. And then you start getting into the actual aesthetics of the branding and what that's going to look like and how you're going to go after this, because you've determined that this is worth your time and it's worth your resources. And most importantly, it's worth the risk. So in business, typically what you want to have, what you would like to have is a very robust funnel of opportunity, not based on one or two or even three clients. You need a robust funnel of opportunity that you have identified and you have financial metrics behind. Because when you understand the financial metrics and you understand the probability, you can then begin to understand your branding and marketing budget. How much money do I need to spend in order to acquire this client and or clients, because it could be definitely multiple, and that you've identified the market drivers at a high end, and you've already identified that this is a problem that needs solving, that they will spend money and their resources to invest in you and what you do in order to be successful in their endeavor. Someone told me this a long time ago, and it's so important. You need to understand your client's problem more than you understand your own solution. And that's a tall order because a lot of people are like, you know what? I'm a great mechanic. I really understand cars. I can totally take a car apart and put it back together in no time flat. I'm the best at what I do in that particular area. But that is not the business problem of your client. The client needs the car to enable them to get to where they want to go. It's transportation is what they need. And if they find that their car that they have that maybe they want to get it fixed or maybe they don't. You are a mechanic, but they might look at that investment like, okay, it's going to cost me $5,000 to fix this particular transmission in order to get transportation. And then your client is thinking, hey, you know what? I could either buy a new car or I can wait to buy a car. I can start to use alternative modes of transportation. I don't necessarily need to have a mechanic to fix this car. So you cannot make assumptions just because you are a great mechanic that this person is going to actually choose this option in order to fix their particular transportation problem. So understanding their problem, like, okay, I understand their problem. You need transportation, not necessarily a vehicle. And let's have a conversation about your transportation. What does the transportation allow you to do? Well, it allows me to get to work in order to make money, in order to then feed my family, and the cycle goes on to pay my bills. You say, okay, how much is that worth to you? Well, to get to my job and what I do costs $50,000. Well, how much does it cost you to drive to work just before you even get a job? Well, that's costing me X amount in gas and that type of thing. And it costs me, I don't know, $300 to $500 per month. You start doing the math with them. Okay, so if it's costing you $500 a month and you are going to a job that costs you $50,000 and now you have a $5,000 problem, right? How much time is it going to take you to make up that 10,000 or that $5,000 delta in your particular situation? And you start thinking through that and helping the client think through that. Like, yeah, I never thought of it like that. That's true. So if you take an alternative mode of transportation, let's say you start to Uber to your job, how much is it going to cost you? Was it cost you more than $500 a month or less? You're like, well, actually, it's going to cost me more. It's going to cost me anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 if I continue to Uber, and I've got to pay them on a daily basis, and I only get paid once or twice a month. That's going to be stressful by itself. Okay, that starts to make sense. So is fixing your car a big problem for you? How are you going to pay for fixing your car? Like, well, I do have a credit card or I do have savings that I would want to say, well, what's the time value of that money? Do you need to drive that car immediately? Or can you just Uber everywhere? Or you want to save that money in the bank? You start thinking through this problem. Like, you know what? I don't just use the car to get to work. Oh, you don't. What else do you use it for? And then you start to really unfold all that. And then you might come to the best solution for that problem is to fix and repair the vehicle, because then getting into a new car and now you got a whole new payment, let's say, and a whole new set of circumstances around insurance and other things. Is that going to be a successful solution to your problem? If you are a good business person, you will sit down and have these kinds of conversations with your client to understand their problem and understand the implications of that problem and help them understand the options that they can use to potentially solve that problem, which of course it starts to include your own solution. And then you've done all the selling up front. At the point where they start to really consider using you, you've already taken them through the whole buying process. So you become a viable person for them to invest in. Like, okay, you are the best solution for me if that was the case. So if your marketing and your branding doesn't speak to that kind of customer journey, and it's all about I can fix cars real great, you have not talked about all the other things that are being considered in this particular problem that the client has, right? This is solving business problems with your solutions. But if your branding and marketing is all about your solutions and not your particular situation with the problem, you're already 180 degrees misaligned with your client. And I found this so prevalent in so many brands that I have come across, specifically in the technology space. It's all about them. It was all about their speeds. It's all about their fees. It was all about the latest widget, their software and their capabilities and what they were able to do. And they're not talking to the client specifically and the problem that they have. They lead all their marketing, all their materials, all the print that they have, everything they see online, everything that's in their social media feeds is all about their solution. It has nothing to do with the problem that they have and the potential options for solving that problem. Nothing. So when you start getting into the branding or the aesthetics and the look and feel of your brand, look at it and see if it's actually speaking to the problem in depth, in depth. And as you're making your brand visible, as part of the Brave Van brand blueprint framework, the visibility of the brand. What is it looking like? And what does it say? Because most of the time, when you hear about why people don't like salespeople, is because they're trying to sell them something that they don't know anything about, they don't have any interest in, and they don't have a problem that's even associated with this particular solution. And they're just showing up at your door, knock, 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 knock. Hey, buy my stuff, invest in my business, do this, do that. And like, I don't even know who you are and what you're talking about and why you're even talking to me. And this is annoying. It's a big difference when somebody talks to you about a solution or something that they have that actually aligns with the situation that you're in. Big different conversation, right? Especially when it comes to somebody that you know and trust. Everybody knows about that. Know, like, and trust, right? But I guarantee you, if you got a friend that you got a friend that you like, and you got a friend that you trust, and that friend constantly is talking to you about something irrelevant to your life and your interest and where your passions are, they might not be a friend very long. So be careful about that. Be careful about what you're promoting, even referring for someone else. Make sure that is an interest for them. And if and you say, well, Grant, I'm not sure who's out there is looking at my stuff. I have to, so that's when you do your research and make sure that your target audience, that they're seeing you as a thought leader, that you're doing the correct marketing, that you're doing the correct branding, and that you are first establishing yourself as a thought leader and a problem solver and someone who understands the business dilemma at a very, very high level. That you are true and true, you understand these challenges. So, what I'm talking to you about is like, I do understand branding and marketing and selling, business development, personal branding. Those are my expertise, right? Those are things that I hone in on, and especially when I talk about personal branding. When you're a small business owner and you're in business and you're promoting your business, you have to have a figurehead for that business. It has to have a human pulse to it. It's going to be easier for you to get business when people become familiar with who you are. And then they'll become more familiar with your business and what they do. And it becomes much more easier for them to talk about it because they understand who you are and what you do. And that's from a personal brand perspective, is and acknowledging yourself as someone who understands the business. When you engage with me, you're engaging with my 25, 30 plus years in business development in the healthcare and information technology sector. You can begin to ask me questions around your particular issues that are in those particular realms, because that's where I sit. That's where I'm at. I'll be on shows talking about these types of things because it's important. Not all about five-star BDM, which is my business, right? But I'm establishing myself first as a thought leader, someone who understands all the different nuances that people are going through right now, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence, which is taking over a lot of the thought waves and workforces, and how this is going to affect remote workforce. How's it going to affect me personally? What does that look like? Let's have a conversation around that, right? You seem to know about technology. How's that going to impact? And I guarantee you, it'll impact a lot of different things. It'll impact your branding, it'll impact your marketing, it'll impact your client, because in negative and positive ways, because it's change. It'll change things. And anytime there's change, there's things that are going to be there. They're no longer there anymore. So market conditions are constantly going to be in a state of flux. So whether you're in real estate, let's say, whether you're in insurance, whether you're in finance, and that's the business model that you're in, I guarantee you artificial intelligence is going to affect you one way or another. So I try to put information out about that so people can get a better understanding of what it is. It's not just about generative AI, chat GPT, Bard, and the like. It's more than that, and understanding how to utilize this new business tool to affect your particular business and make it more effective. You can do more granular research than you ever could before. And maybe before you used to pay a consulting agency to get you this kind of insight. Now you can get these insights yourself. And you'll find that you can to a certain degree. And that's that DIY approach. That is the do it yourself approach. But you'll still have to understand that you're going to have to go to a subject matter expert in that area to get even better insights. And you should. And that causes the consultants now that used to be able to give more, what I call more information to you, now I have to give you more intelligent insight to you. So it raises the bar for everybody. So if you start to look at yourself, if you're doing the same business that you were doing a year ago before generative AI really exploded onto the scene, you're behind the ball. If you have the same business model that you're putting out there. And again, I go back to what I was saying before. Are you truly understanding the business problem that you solve in your target audience? Do you truly understand their experience? Customer experience is king. King. That is going to help you to be relevant to a discussion. Have you set up different workshops for people to get more information and more insight around the problem that you solve? They're not interested in just seeing a slick flyer. That's great. They're not interested in saying, hey, I fixed 35 cars in 30 days for less than $5,000. That might sound like a slick, nice ad. That's not really moving the needle. What I need to understand is, hey, did you know these particular brands are having these particular issues with these particular situations with cars that might affect your car? I might be interested in that because I don't want to have to go through the problem of getting a new transmission if I can avoid it. So I can talk to somebody and actually, hey, you know what? These particular issues with these particular cars or something that's happening, it could cost you X, Y, Z. You may or may not. If you already have the car, here's some options. Man, this guy's talking to me about a potential problem that I might have. And he understands the problems that people already have. He hasn't even talked about fixing 35 cars in 30 days for less than $5,000. Call me now. That's not going to get it. That kind of branding and marketing is not going to work. You need to talk to people about their experiences and why their experiences are important, or the potential for dangers that they might come across. So thought leadership talks about these particular subjects. And that's why it's so important to get into social selling. understanding how to put information and intelligence out there through platforms like this, where you can go live and talk about these particular issues. No, I don't want you to pull out your credit card. I don't need you to pull out and give me all your contact information. I must first give you value. My first job is to give you value, not the values that I have per se, but the values that you need to understand. And I would tell you right now, people will say, well, Grant, I got a business going. I need to get this started. I'm going to go ahead and get me a logo. I'm going to go ahead and get me a website. I'm going to go ahead and get me a pitch set up. And then I'm going to put it out on my social media feeds on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram. And people are going to come. That's not going to happen. You'll get very little traffic that way because you're putting the cart before the horse. You're talking all about your solutions. You're somewhat visible, but you're going backward because you haven't identified the target audience. You haven't identified the business problem that you're truly looking to solve and why that's important. You haven't established any kind of brand identity of why somebody would then be interested in you. And you start looking at different influencers and how they got going and how they became more popular or how they got to a success point. They started just where you're at right now, but they started from an aspect that they filled a gap in the market that someone else found that they needed to have a problem solved, that they needed to get a voice out there. They needed to get more visibility in this area. I needed more insight here. I needed more information. I needed more intelligence. And if you already started branding and marketing just about you haven't addressed any of these issues. You haven't established yourself at all. When you look at people like Brene Brown, people like her, she's very nice, she's very popular. But she just started out doing TEDx talks. And she talked about things that were important in the world and her views on that importance. She started doing this and she wasn't doing it to monetize. She had no monetization at that point. People started to tune into her. They found her information valuable, and it started to naturally guide her into an area that then she could start writing books, right? She started to then get paid for speaking engagements, right? So now when you see something like her website or you see an ad about Brene Brown, remember what preceded all of that. You're like, wow, oh yeah, I know her. Yeah, she's very famous. Oh yeah, let me pay attention to that. See, that's not backward, that's forward. So you can't start from the end of the train and act like you're driving, the engine. It doesn't work like that. You're going to have to do the hard work of establishing yourself in the field of the sector that you're looking to penetrate and present the values and the intelligence and the insights of who you are as a thought leader in that particular realm. And then you begin the arduous process of branding and marketing to your specific niche that you are in. And then you can begin the process of like, oh, you know what? Now I've got me a nice store because I've got a store now, Follow the Brand store. You can go to the Follow the Brand store and you'll see all the different things that I've done for all the different interviews that I've done with people, whether they were in CEOs of different hospitals or they needed help with career development, business development, technology, innovation, financial empowerment, personal branding, brand mastery, executive presence. I established the brand by talking to people that were already thought leaders in the space. And then that through synergy put me in the same atmosphere as they are in, whether it's in their network or what they're doing, and starts to say, like, Grant, wow, Grant is a brand master. Grant is someone I need to talk to. Grant does have intelligence in this world, and I relate to Grant. I relate to Grant. And how do I begin to relate to Grant? By consuming his content that's out on YouTube, that's out on all the different podcast stations, consuming information that's on his website that's all readily available. It's not just me. It's about the situations and the problems and conditions that they're in. Hey, you know what? I'm interested in a career in healthcare. Wow, you know what? Grant has got 30 defined podcasts from different leaders in healthcare speaking specifically about how you can move ahead in the healthcare space through leadership, through technology, through business acumen, executive presence, and all of these different things. And he actually has a total of 150 different podcasts talking about all kinds of different things, especially in technology innovation, how this relates to all these different things that I just talked about. That is how I've established my particular brand first. And then from there, it's like, oh, wow, he actually has business and technology services. He has business and technology consulting services. He can actually put together different branded events specifically for me to help me with business development. He has business development and personal branding services. This is great. So I can actually learn from an industry expert. And this is how I do it, by clicking and getting an appointment and then talking to Grant and finding out what is the best avenue for success with my particular issue or problem that I'm trying to solve. And I love working with people that are on the road for small business development. Where are they at? What do they need to do? The biggest problem I see, here's a problem. Biggest problem I see is that they don't know how to invest wisely, whether it's time or money. What do they truly need to do first before they do anything else? And I've seen them that it's like this. And somebody explained this to me, and it was so good. You may have a phone, right? I've got a phone. And then on that phone, you've got numbers. You can, you can dial any digit that you want. But if you don't have the specific number to dial up someone like Gary Thompson, if you don't have his actual number, the actual arrangement, the actual flow, or where the digits go to actually get him on the phone on the other side of that technology, you'll never get him on the phone. And that's the biggest problem that I see a lot in small business. They have a phone, they have digits, but they don't know the right order of those digits in order to dial up the business that they need, and understanding their client that then is going to answer that call and then begin to have a conversation with you on how to solve important business issues. That is what I bring to the table. I help you to put these things in the right order of success in order for you to have impact in your business sector. You might, again, be a great technician, great mechanic. You're very wonderful. And I find this even also a lot in the physician world. They're great doctors, super great. I would want them working on me every day of the week. But when it comes to business and business acumen, they're not the greatest. They don't have necessarily an MBA, a master's in business, for what they want to accomplish. They don't really understand all the financial mechanisms, the technology in landscape, the tech stack that's needed to make sure that everything is going to run smoothly. So they have to outsource a lot of that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And then in the world of a changing market set, in the consumerization of healthcare that's taking place now, it's no longer doctor by referral. That used to be the way to go. Hey, Dr. D, he's my doctor. Go see him. He'll help you with X. or you go to the hospital and then they say, hey, you know what, you've got a problem in this area or that area. Here's the referral to the doctor. Now that still happens, but guess what? As a consumer, you have access to so much information now. You're like, okay, I understand the problem that you just told me I have. I don't necessarily have to use this particular physician, or I might look up that physician and find out this is not the right person for me, and I have all these other options. Or I start to use people that are outside of that particular network and use something else that's better for me. This is a change in market conditions that were not in the market 3 to 5 years ago, but they're in the market now. And if your business hasn't adjusted to the market, changing market conditions, you're going to see a loss in revenue. This is going to happen, right? So then you would seek out a person like myself to say, okay, what can I do to change that? Where are you at? What are we really talking about? And then you got to start having these same conversations that I talked about. What's the identity that you have? What is your identity? And not just how you see yourself, but how does the market see you? How does your client see you? How do they really see you? What are they talking about? What is your reputation in the market that you're in? You need to understand that and incorporate that into your branding and your marketing. It's not all about how you see yourself. It's important that you see yourself. It's important that you identify your core values. It is important to understand your mission, your vision, and your values. But I guarantee you, if you don't understand your own reputation in the market that you're in, you don't understand how people see your mission, vision, and values, or are you executing on those things? So important. We've seen this now in the age of social media that if a client, customer, patient, patron has a bad experience in your particular business and puts it out there in the social media ethers, it can directly impact your brand immediately. That's the court of public opinion. It's important to manage it. So your brand helps to manage your reputation. And then you need to actually execute on it. You have to be authentic in your brand. That A is also part of the Brave brand blueprint. You've got to be authentic. You've got to actually sit back and say, I am great in these areas. But you've also got to look at that SWOT analysis and understand your weaknesses. Where are you weak at? Where have you dropped the ball? Where are you dropping the ball? Have a true assessment of yourself in the business and a true assessment of customer input. You can't just ask them when they just got your service and they're all hyped, they're great. But after they've acquired your product or service, what was that experience like really? And will they tell you the truth or not? You need to understand that because they might tell their brother or their other significant other, hey, yeah, you know what? I was on Grant's podcast. It was fantastic. I really enjoy that. Man, he does a great job. And then I worked with him on his personal brand workshop and his program, and that was wonderful. That I've gotten new direction in what I want to do. And that's great feedback. That's the kind of feedback I want to say. Am I delivering on my messaging, in my branding, in my marketing? Am I telling the truth? Truth is a big, big thing today, especially in a AI-centric world. And we are there. In an AI-centric world, what is the truth? Truth is big because anybody can make up a likeness these days and put some things out there that may or may not be factual. But the truth will always ring true. And you need to know the truth for yourself and your business and what that really lies in. And are you hitting the mark? Are you getting the real testimonials from clients that and that represents the lion's share of the people that are interacting in with your business product and services? Are you getting those real video testimonials like Grant McGaw, you did this for me. Grant McGaw, I am so glad. Grant McGaw, this is wonderful. I like to hear that. But I also need to hear those that are like, I listened to that podcast and I didn't really get much value out of that. And here's why. I need to understand that because that's how I get better, right? You know what, Grant? I took your personal brand, 4-week engagement, and it was good, but I really wish focus more on this area. I thought I was going to get more out of this in this area. Like, wow, it was my messaging off? Did I really explain the value that they would get out of my particular 4-week engagement and what that would look like? I need to pay attention to that so it doesn't grow in that area, that I can say, you know what, I've got a handle on where I drop the ball. Can I have a real conversation if it's possible? Sometimes you can't, but you need to have an attempt at understanding your reputation in the market and if it's true or not. The court of public opinion is very, very, very unforgiving. And I want to insert some things in branding marketing. People they limit PR, press releases, or public relations. Public relations can bring you up or they can sink you. And most people don't even engage. So it's not even there in their branding and marketing approach. It's not so much that people expect when they engage with you, that you're going to say nice things about your business. It's expected, right? They almost expect if they see a customer testimony, you're not going to put a testimonial up that spoke negatively about your business. That's not going to be there. Now, you go to social media, you might see some things like, I did interact with 5-Star BDM and this, and this. And you're like, wow, there's some negative reviews out there. And you need to understand what those are. But if you use public relations correctly, you can get on certain media outlets that help to tell your story in a true and factual way. That's very, very, very important and a great tool for you to utilize at great length. So it's not so much that you're just out on social media or you're out and you got an article written about you, or you wrote your own article. You want others to acknowledge you. I will be acknowledged this particular weekend by my community, and I'm very proud of that. This weekend, I will be acknowledged with 23 other individuals in the Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade County. They were acknowledged during Black History Month. It'll start on February 3rd. They're going to acknowledge 24 Black men who have been instrumental in the community. And I am so proud that I'm one of them, that they would select me for my branding and my marketing and my knowledge in healthcare, my knowledge in information technology that enlightens people. It gives them insight and it gives them value. I'll be in the same stage with people that are the mayor of Miramar, Florida. I'll be on the same stage with people that are the city council members of the city of Miami Gardens. I'll be on the same stage with another gentleman who is the state representative for my district in the legislature in Florida. That's important. And these are just some of the individuals. There's many, many more in many, many sectors, where they're in insurance, or they're in real estate, or they're in the law field. They're in business. They're small business owners. And I am very, very proud of the fact that I've been acknowledged. This is public relations. And this is something that you need to put yourself in a visible atmosphere that people will take note. And like, all right, this person is doing something that's actually beneficial for my community. I need to pay attention to that. Let's see if we can tune in to what he's doing. Let's bring him forth before the community and acknowledge the work that he's doing. That is fantastic. Talk about branding and marketing. How does that get any better? That's like sticking a flyer on everybody's desk. No, that's even more. That's your community saying Grant is a stand-up person. Grant is a good guy. Grant has value. You need to understand what Grant is doing at 5 Star BDM. You need to follow Grant on Follow the Brand. His podcast is liberating people from their mindsets. He's giving them tool sets. He's giving them skill sets. He's helping them to grow big, right? And I got that particular statement from a woman that was on my podcast. Her name is Daphne Jones. Wonderful story. She originally from Jamaica, and she grew up in the Chicago area. And she grew up like a lot of people. Her self-awareness of herself as a Black woman growing up in an impoverished area wasn't that great. She felt like she wasn't, going to get ahead in life very far because of her disadvantaged state. But she began to believe in herself. And instead of just settling for a job at a publication and just doing secretarial work, she went to school, and she ended up getting a master's in business in technology. And then she ended up working for a Fortune 500 company, and she ended up being the chief information technology officer for giant company, talking about something like GE. Imagine that, General Electric. And then she went on to become a board member and teaching people how to get onto boards, no matter what their background is. And she came out with a great book around how to manage success. This is a framework. This is a process. This is a journey. And all of us don't always learn these things in traditional school settings. You have to learn from people who have lived the experience. The experience is very, very valuable. My job is to bring that experience to light, to make it visible. So when I'm thinking about there's another little Daphne that possibly down in some of these underrepresented communities in America or wherever they may be in the world, but they get this message. It's like, you know what? Yes, I can. If I apply myself and I do the very best I can, and I study and I get into the right networks and I start talking to the right people, and they start seeing that I'm bringing something to the table, and they start bringing me along and advocating for me on my behalf, I too can be great. And that's what my podcast is all about. It's what my brand is all about. I want to share knowledge that is impactful as we are going into a unprecedented new world as far as the different ages of business, as we've gone through the agricultural age, right? And then we've gone through now the manufacturing age. And then we've gone in now into the information technology age. And then we get into the Internet of Things age, kind of like what they call Industry 4.0. That's what if you've heard these terms, that's what they're really referring to. What we're really getting to, and that's going to be a very short-lived age, meaning it's still there. So all these things don't go away; they just start working differently. This fifth age is really the age of intelligent technology. I don't really call it artificial technology. It's intelligent technology, meaning you need to be more intelligent in utilizing the technology that's all around you to be more cognitive and more aware of how to utilize these tools that are available to you. Just like I'm on this particular platform that gives me a wider reach to get out with a greater message and to impact community upon communities upon communities with the understanding of where they sit in today's market, the market condition, right? The market condition of Industry 5.0, intelligent technology. Get on board now. Teach your children, teach anyone around you how to utilize advanced technology that you have at your fingertips. This is not just a phone. This is a computer, a very powerful device. This particular device right now is more powerful than all the computers that put a man on the moon back in the 1960s. Most people don't realize it. You now have access to intelligence that you need to be in an Ivy League school to get exposure to. Now you have it at your fingertips. You just got to know how to ask the right question to get the right response in the right context to be able to utilize the technology for your endeavors, for the good of the whole, to have us to be more impactful. So as I begin to sum up this whole discussion that we've had, I want you to understand about branding and marketing, where that fits into the entire ecosystem. Branding and marketing is about making it visible, but you have to have the values in order to amplify what is visible. What is the value? What is the social impact that you have? Do you truly understand the customer problem even greater than your own? And if you do, how are you stating it? How are you getting out in front and being a thought leader, a subject matter expert that can add value to help people even before they have the problem? Wow, you know what? That's interesting. I didn't know that. Hmm. I didn't know all these things and nuances in the AI area. What does that look like? I didn't know all these things around cybersecurity, how to protect myself. I didn't know all these things about business development. I didn't know how you could just personally brand yourself and why that's important. It's not just an exercise in vanity. No, no, no. This is how you establish yourself as a business professional in this century. Personal branding. You have to establish, you can't allow your resume that you dust off every 1, 2 to 10 years to speak for yourself. You need to be speaking for yourself now. You can't afford to just have a small work unit, know about the business acumen that you have and the different technologies that you're aware of, or the different skill sets that you have, and you only have a work unit of maybe 10, 20, maybe a couple hundred people. No, you need to know thousands of people need to know that, or at least they need to understand that they can know that about you. That's why I'm on these platforms like Gatherverse that I'll be on even later today. If you go to gatherverse.com, you'll learn a lot about human-centric technology in the AI era. And this is so important as we begin to understand ethics. We start to understand regulation. And if we're not at the table of how these things are determined, you'll start to see how the tech state, all the big technology companies, and the nation states begin to converge and create even a new control factor on a lot of the people and the powers that are available. So if you're not at the table talking about these things, you could be left out, and then you could be in a similar state that you are in now or worse off because you don't understand how the market conditions are changing, the economy is changing, the social economics are changing. And so if you are not changing what is happening, there's only three things that are going to happen. You're either going to get more positive, you're going to get more negative, or you're going to stay the same. So you need to make a choice in all of these endeavors and take it to heart. Think about these things. And then you can look me up, 5starbdm.com, to get more information. And
Oh
here's
my,
the
Grant, I must thank you tremendously for holding the fort. I did express to you what's happening, but you have done a really wonderful job. And I want to thank you from the depths of my heart for the information that you would have shared and with the public.
You're most welcome, Gary. I'm glad I was able to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I will reach out to you shortly. We have to do this again. And I know that you're going to become even more powerful with the additional information that we're going to be sharing.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it.
Thanks again, my friend.
Take care.
All right. And there you had it. This is a 5-star, celebrity. He has worked with so many top companies in the US. And I really want to encourage you to follow him across the platforms that he's on and keep looking out. And more is going to be coming very soon from Grant, because he has so much, a wealth of information that can really help you to transform the way you do business. Thanks again, my friend, and we'll do this again soon.
Absolutely. Can't wait. You take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.